Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast, where we finally solve the mystery as to whom the father of Sidney LaForge is and just who came before the lore. I'm Lars.
And I'm Patrick, and I can't believe you actually read all that shit out loud. That was terrible. I'm just quitting now. Goodbye. Okay, let's do the episode.
In this episode, we're heading back into review mode, and it's time to do a play-by-play breakdown of the 6th episode of Season 3 of Star Trek Picard. A little birdie tells me that Easter is coming early this year as the motherload of eggs is about to appear.
Insert facepalm. Also, what do you mean by headed back into review mode? What do you mean?
Nothing. Shut up.
Oh, so you didn't mean to kind of slip that. Although I mentioned it on my stream a couple times once we had it in the can.
Oh, that's fine. And I also dropped it on. I dropped the reveal on Instagram this afternoon. So.
Yeah, we'll hit that shit up at the end of the episode, and I'm sure you would love to be described as we hit that shit up. That was wrong. Okay, so let's get into this mess. Let's get getting the gang back together. Pretty much got everybody on screen finally.
Finally, everybody, like literally everybody, makes an appearance in this episode, except for Wesley. Jerk.
Oh darn!
I kid.
I still want to see Ensign Robin Leffler return.
Ooh, yes.
Although she's got to be at least a captain by now.
Well, Sonia Gomez is, so I mean, come on.
Yeah, Robin Leffler was even more interesting than support Sonia Gomez.
Yeah, the funny thing is, actually, Sonia Gomez is a captain in like the 2380s. So this is like 20 years later. She's got to be a freaking admiral by now.
Or she's dead. Yeah. Or she's dead because of reasons. I don't know.
Because of reasons, yeah. No,
okay.
I don't think that way.
Yeah, it's not like Star Trek would take a character, bring him back after 30, 40 years and kill them in the same episode. Oh, wait a minute. That was the last episode. So we start with 3 Federation starships arriving at the location of a transponder that the Titan dropped. Another one, of course, Vatic aboard the Shrike finds it, and she's kind of
pissy,
chewing on her crew. I think one of them starts to argue and gets shot pretty quickly. They point out Frontier Day is 72 hours away. They have no idea where Jack Crusher is. And it's pretty bad. So basically, let's see here. She says, go ahead.
So we thought the character who was going to be the big bad became Big Mad.
Yep. So she says, we will scorch the earth under which he stands, and the night will brighten with the ashes of the Federation. And from them we will rise. Yeah, I love it. Both calculating and scenery chewing at the same time, it's a beautiful thing. Because a villain chewing the scenery just a little bit sometimes is the greatest thing in the world. So, let's talk about Mystery Box Jack. Beverly gets in finds out after Jack confided her all about his crazy shit, she found out it's Irmotic syndrome.
Yeah, I call BS on that, but we all saw it coming. Like it was pre-spoiled a couple weeks ago when everybody started talking about the what they thought was going on with Jack. You know, was he a changeling? Was he somehow mixed in with this whole thing? And then I was reading an article online a couple weeks ago, and somebody pegged it right there and said it could be Irmotic syndrome since it's genetic.
Yay! So there you go. Mystery box is over. Although we still don't know why they want Jack. Who knows?
Well, given the reveal at the end of the episode, I have a theory.
Okay. Yeah, we find out a few other things here, so that kind of. So Picard, after finding this out, finding Beverly's treating him, and he'll probably be good for decades or die during the end of the season. So Picard goes to find him, and guess where he finds him? Getting more use out of that 10 forward set, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They probably spent like half the entire season just filming them there.
Yep, and I think drinking, because that's what Jack doing. They discuss it a little bit more, and he gives Picard a little shit for passing on more genetics than wisdom. And Seven calls him in, says that they've arrived, and who has arrived? It's Raffi and Worf. Of course, Raffi just gets to stand there while Worf gets to hug Beverly, and Worf points out it's been 11 years, 5 months, 4 days, minus his infrequent messages, an annual bottle of sour mead since he last saw Picard. What was it with shitting on Chateau Picard?
Like, I mean,
seriously,
everybody's dunking on him.
So we find out that Picard finds out Worf's been doing all his meditation and shit, and Riker's looking at him weird, and yeah. Raffi and Seven are kind of weird. I don't know. That's the best way to describe it.
Well, I mean, we know that awkwardness because we know that something happened in between the two seasons.
Yeah. And, of course, Worf gets down to business, says that they have to ensure that Rolaren didn't die in vain to protect both Starfleet and such. Yeah. So we go. Titan takes off, and the crew meets in the conference room with Shaw. Worf explains that change never emerged. Obviously, they recount some of the shit from DS9. They pretty much say, yeah, things are going to go down on Frontier Day, and now it's less than 48 hours away. They believe the only thing they discuss the option to breaking into Daystrom Station. So basically, it's a lot of everybody dumping and kind of trying to get everything that we've heard over the last episode. So we get Worf, Raffi, and Riker saddle up. Seven goes with them, but Worf, of course, points out he has been battled alongside lovers many times and is able to mention how therapeutic it can be. Then Seven says she's not going. Worf's relieved, admitting he'd been practicing deceits, and breakups on his homeworld rarely end without bloodshed. So, yeah, it's kind of hilarious. They'll have to beam in, get moving, and get out before the patrols come through. So that's pretty much what they're going to do. Worf mentions that Riker says, hope the key works otherwise after assault to gold old-fashioned Klingon offense. Worf mentions he now prefers pacifism to actual combat before giving the order to energize, and Riker says they're all going to die.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't think Riker can needle Worf anymore. It's sad, but that's kind of fun. So they beam in, they plug in the key, and the computer's threatening to kill them. Although we find out that the computer voice ultimately belongs to Brent Spiner. We'll explain, but we'll get into that because that's the big reveal coming up. Unfortunately, 2 starships show up at about that time, having already located the Titan. They try to bring the team back, but they can't already. The ships are Echelon class, which means they have traceable payloads, and if they hit the Titan, they could be tracked. So they decide to take off and go running and let them know. After this, Picard has an idea, sets the course for Athon Prime. I'm not sure pronunciation. I think it's Athon Prime.
It's Athon Prime.
Athon Prime. And I got it right the first time.
Did we not go there in Star Trek Online to the Fleet Museum? Or was that around Earth?
Yeah, it was around Earth.
Okay.
It was around Earth and DS9 that they were running it. Because otherwise they'd have to add a new spot, so they haul off, and they haul haul ass out. So the team's exploring through Daystrom. So things they see a Thalaron generator from Nemesis, another Genesis device, the body of James T. Kirk, a genetically modified attack tribble. Riker, of course, makes fun of Worf because, of course, he does. They keep moving. Meanwhile, the station identifies Riker, and suddenly a holographic crow appears. Riker thinks there's something familiar. This was. Do you remember the episode that this came from?
The episode with the crow? Is that where
Yes.
Data has the dreams?
Yeah, hang on a second. Yeah, it was a TNG episode where Data was doing some dreaming. I can't find the exact one, and they didn't have that. Sorry, couldn't find that information fast enough, so we'll continue. Meanwhile, some notes start playing out, which strangely, the same notes that we've been seeing in the end credits.
And of course, Riker recognizes them because he's a
Yep.
musician. So,
But first, Professor Moriarty shows up and pulls out a pistol. So I will say one thing about this is kind of a disappointment because Moriarty is just a construct. It's not the OG Moriarty. He's still in his ship in the bottle somewhere. Or been deleted. But, yeah, Moriarty shows up. But this is yet another clue coming. So, we cut to the Titan arriving at Athen Prime, which is home of the Fleet Museum. We see the original Earth space docks from all the way back in Season 3. And there's a whole lot of ships. We'll get to those when I get a spot where it mentions. Of course, this is where they find Commodore Geordi LaForge. I wonder if he's related to anybody on the Titan.
No, there's nobody, not at all.
Oh, yeah. And the wiki here says the museum's director and Sydney's father.
No way.
Yes way.
That's a shock reveal. What a twist.
So Geordi shows up with his daughter Alondra, who's also his daughter in real life.
So that's both actresses who play Geordi's daughters are his real life daughters.
Are you sure on the one that plays Sydney?
Yep.
Okay. I wasn't able to find that. That's why I was wondering. Okay, so he, of course, gives Beverly a hug. Greetings to Picard. Greetings to Sydney, who's pretty stiff with him. Geordi interrupts, and he's, not happy. Because, for some reason, let's see here. Says we need to talk, takes Picard, and Sydney admits she hasn't been on the best of terms with her father, Geordi. And kind of an interesting little note, because that's the same thing Jack's been doing with Jean-Luc. So, on learning that Jax is Jean-Luc's son, Geordi's points out that the captain managed to turn fatherhood into an intergalactic incident, because it's Picard. Picard tries to explain about not only is it Starfleet, but changelings are chasing, and that Worf and Riker are stuck on Daystrom. Picard asks for help, but Geordi is not happy. Basically, wants his daughters out of the kill zone because it's a bad day.
Well, of course, naturally, any decent parent would want to protect their children.
Yep. So, and Geordi points out that all the ships in Starfleet are fully integrated, which means they talk to each other, which means the Titan pretty much lights up anytime it's near another ship. Which could be a bad thing.
Which would also, they'd finally realize how they've been tracked.
Yep. Still better than what happens when you network all your ships together. Actually, Wait a minute, isn't that kind of what happened in I can't even remember the name of the show. Prodigy. At the end of season of Prodigy, all the Federation ships started networking and going rogue and trying to kill.
And there was another show where networked together computers on ships spelled Bad Mojo.
AKA Battlestar Galactica.
There you go. That's the one I was looking for.
I don't think we talked about BSG on our interview, but oh well. I think it got mentioned in passing, but we'll talk about the interview at the very end, since we'll go after this episode. Okay, so let's see here. So Raffi's wondering what's going on with the 19th century holovillain, but Moriarty, of course, points that villain does not do justice to his complexity, and he starts shooting, and he continues shooting. More notes blast, but then this isn't the same self-aware Moriarty from Enterprise D, but a projection. Recognize the notes, and then he figures out what it is, because we cut to footage from Encounter at Farpoint.
Yep.
Where we find Data whistling that, and Riker finishes it, and Data, of course, responds with "marvelous," not figuring out he has to have no motion yet. So Riker finishes it in Daystrom, and it clears things off. Then it clears things off. They go in and they find a Soong-type android, which happens to be the AI. We don't know more about it, but we're going to find out. Any thoughts?
Oh, you've got it covered.
Okay. So Geordi says he wants to help the crew, but he doesn't want his daughters at risk. Alonda tries to talk up and say there might be something, but Geordi shuts it down. They continue arguing back and forth, and really we see Picard and Geordi going at each other, and Alondra leaves and fills in Sydney on how things are going, which is not well.
Is it just me?
But
did this entire episode did everybody, like practically everybody in this episode, refer to Picard as Jean-Luc? Like everybody called him Jean-Luc. Even Vadic calls him Jean-Luc.
Worf doesn't.
Yeah.
Worf never will. You know that. So here we go. So Jack plops down the captain's chair, and they go cycling through the ships in the museum because we got to do this. We get the USS Defiant, the ship from DS9. We get the USS New Jersey, which is I forgot the reference off the top of my head, but it's an original series Constitution class. We cut to the Enterprise A herself, from where she was dropped. And then the last ship, of course, we get is, and by the way, the themes from the movies that these ships appear in play lightly in the background. And then we finally cut to the one that is the nearest and dearest to Seven's heart, the Voyager, USS Voyager herself. She points out this is where she was reborn. This is what her family was on here. It was out farther than anybody else. Oh, and then it cuts to one other little ship known as the HMS Bounty, from whence the episode title comes, which is that Klingon bird of prey that they pulled out of San Francisco. They had a hard time finding because the cloaking device reactivated.
I am shocked.
So we cut to Daystrom's mainframe, and they discuss that Data's died twice, and they managed to pull up. They're not sure what they're dealing with because there's also the pieces of B4 there. but obviously data dumped into B4, but that wasn't really recovered. So we cut to whichever version of Soong appeared in season 1 in holoform pops up and points out that there is combination of LOL, B4, lore, and mostly data in a aged human form. So
that was kind of interesting that they chose to go with the human skin tone for the android this time. I think I do believe that he refers to himself as Daystrom Android M510.
Yeah, a reference to the old M5 computer from the original series. So let's see here. Where are we at here? So ultimately, Geordi says he wants to take his daughters and get the hell out of here, and Picard said, because Geordi basically wants to get his family and get out of there before things go bad. Sydney, of course, gets upset with him because she says she's going to stay because this is her family. Because she knows what's at stake because she literally saw a corpse that looked exactly like her. So let's see here. Obviously, Geordi relates how they felt when the Titan went missing, and there's a lot of feels here. They're discussing options as to what happens, but then suddenly the ship cloaks. Oh, actually, no, we didn't get to that part. I'm sorry. It's actually Jack talking to Alondra and Sydney about some minor larceny. We'll get to the cloaking device later. Back on the station, let's see here. Ultimately, they figure out that that the Soong bot, which is mostly data, has the manifest and knows what's going on the station. But unfortunately, that's when Starfleet security shows up, so they have no way out yet. This is when we cut back to the Titan. That's when the electromagnetic radiation starts going off, and we find out that the Titan has a cloaking device. Geordi yells at Picard for stealing it, but Picard says he didn't know. And of course, then they figure out it's Jack and Sydney are attempting to install the cloak and having problems. Geordi points out that Starfleet fleet will be on its way because stealing the cloak set off security alerts. So Geordi finally, after pointing out that, asking how many trees just got violated, other than probably just the tree to Altron, Picard kind of jokes they'll have to add it to his tab. Geordi gives up, goes down, and of course fixes the cloak because it's Geordi.
Who's has no children whatsoever.
Okay. I think we might have finally run that joke to the ground, but anyway. So meanwhile, Raffi's trying to get the android free. Riker steps out and starts phasering people as the Titan moves in their cloak. Seven says they have to decloak to beam them out, which we know that cloaking device can be beamed through from Star Trek 4.
Correct.
So, unfortunately, just as the Titan's flying in, getting ready to beam them, Riker gets hit with an transport inhibitor tag. The rest of them get beamed out. And then Worf of course says, fills in on Riker's capture and says, "We have lost one friend in battle, but gain another," and reveals Databot, which I know it's not quite Data yet. And here we thought we were going to just get stuck with lore, but oh well. Worf promises that to Picard he'll bring find Riker, bring him home, and be fearful the god or man or beast that stands in my way. because they give Worf all the good and funniest lines. So let's see here. Okay, so we cut the. Let's see here. I'm trying to see where we need to go. Geordi admits to Sydney he wasn't angry at her for what she did, but more disappointed himself for not doing what he normally would do. They're still working on the cloaking device. Sydney hands him the right thing and points out she crashed ships so that she could hang out with her dad as he fixed them. Picard, Beverly, and Worf show up. Picard's stunned to see Data again, even because he's watched him die twice. Geordi points out that Android did die, but this was something new, and that all the personalities in there hadn't really been integrated, but they were all there. They do manage to get him online, and the first thing that the android says is Geordi, which cool little moment because Data and Geordi were really they were the closest of friends.
I actually thought was quite funny because the look on his face, he looks completely confused as to what's going on, and it's probably because the last memories he had were from when he downloaded himself into B4,
right?
And I mean, I don't know how much they're integrating.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how much they're integrating the comic slash Abrams verse movie, because the comic book that led up to the Abrams verse movie, it actually talks about Geordi. Data is back as a captain, and what had happened is Geordi had figured out how to restore all the positronic connections, everything in B4's head. So basically, he became Data because he had all of Data's memories, personality traits, everything. Geordi just kind of unlocked it. So I don't know where I don't know if they actually integrated any part of that. So going off of that alone, his last memory that we know for certain is when he downloaded himself into B4 prior to blowing up in Nemesis. So of course he's got that like where the fuck am I look? And why the fuck are you guys all look old?
Yeah. Now I think now that we see him cycle, we see a little bit of B4, we see Alton Soong, and we see, for a moment, we see Lore. And that evil-ass smile, and it's glorious. This is while they're asking him, what did they steal, finding out what did they steal from Daystrom, and they all keep saying, and every version of the android is saying Jean-Luc Picard. Eventually, he turns on projector eyes, and we see it's the body of Jean-Luc Picard was the thing they stole.
Which, like I said, I have a theory. I think it's just solely so they could get solid genetic material. But it just seems like it's a long kind of convoluted way to go about getting it. And so actually, and that goes on part of it with thinking that's maybe why they're after Jack, because if they get Jack, they get Picard's DNA. Although some
Beverly action.
Say they could just ask him, give him a couple of drinks, and I'm sure he'd probably give it willingly.
Okay, so finally we cut. So last scene we get is aboard Daystrom Station. Security officers trying to beat the location of the Titan out of Riker. Riker's just refusing and smiling between getting punched in the face. Then the security officer turns around, vaporizes the other two officers, and then shapeshifts back to Vadic.
That I did not see.
Nope.
Now, I do have a theory about the crew that Vadic has on her ship, and my thought is they're either some form of evolved Jem'Hadar, or the Jem'Hadar basically rose up and basically noped out, and these guys are the replacements.
Yeah, I think they're just try. I think they're trying to keep them vague for reasons. So, or they're proto changelings or something. Who knows?
Don't say that. Don't say that.
It's one of the few It's one of the few things that jumped. So, of course, she brings Riker to the Shrike, and Riker sees up one of the Baddock's companions, says, "How much of that goose shit they poured in?" Asking how much of the goose shit they poured into him, and gets hit for his things. But Riker's kind of smiling, says, asking if Vadic thought he would give up more than 3 decades of loyalty just for her, and said he wouldn't do it for her, and then reveals that she has Deanna Troi.
Again, I did not see that. I had a what a twist moment.
Well, you had to get Deanna into the show somehow.
Yeah, I should have seen it. You know, especially back in the very beginning of the episode when she starts saying find any of their friends, acquaintances, lovers, whatever. And so yeah, I should have seen that one coming. So, and then we leave the episode there. We prepare ourselves for an anticipated wait for episode 7.
Yep. So yeah, overall this was a fun episode. It definitely wrapped up a lot. Again, we got a whole bunch of storylines wrapped up, and now we got new questions. Still the same basic questions like what do they want with Jack? What's going on with Picard? And what's the whole changeling plot? And what are they going to do? Throw naked Picard out in the middle of Frontier Day, then portal everybody out of their ships or some shit?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Well,
but I'm sure they'll bring it to a close satisfactorily, and that'll be it.
And then we'll all cry because there won't be any more TNG.
Yeah, I'm ready for it to end. It's been a good run, but yeah, you got to retire the characters eventually.
True. Well,
you don't have to retire Star Trek creators until they're too old to create anymore. Speaking of Star Trek creators, this episode will drop. When do we drop this episode?
This will drop the week of the 24th of.
It'll drop on the 24th.
Yes.
Correct. So yeah. What do we have coming up for our next two? Our 2 episodes from now will be dropping about this time. We'll be dropping the same time next week. Yes. But in between,
on the 27th of March, we have a special interview with, of course, Doug Drexler, visual artist for Star Trek. Has worked in Star Trek for at least 20 years. I think 23 was what he said. He started off in makeup, moved to where
he worked on TNG even.
Yeah, and then he moved to visual effects. He did a lot of things in between TNG and say Picard, but he also worked on DS9 and Enterprise, and of course he helped to develop a lot of the new ships for this our last season and this season of Picard.
Yep. So definitely check that out when that drops. And other than that, we'll probably be next week. So.
Yep, and that's all the time we have for this episode of Treknicity. Thank you for joining us for this spoiled review of Star Trek Picard. Please be sure to check us out on our wonderful socials listed below. Also visit on our website visit our YouTube channel at redshirtgeeks.tv, where you can look back at the last 9 years of content. I'm Lars.
And I'm Patrick.
And remember to go boldly and to rock out with your Spock out. We will see you next time.